Yesterday, someone told me they think I was happier when I was in prison than I am out here in the world. It's not the first time I've had that thought. And this wasn't some internet troll leaving nasty comments. This was someone who knows me really well and someone that I trust. And so I really had to think about it because we were having a conversation about what I want to do. And so I asked them, I said, when have you seen me the most happy? Like, you know me as well or better than anyone in the world. When have you seen me at my prime or in my flow or happy? And her response was, look, I think it was when you were in prison. And she said, some of that may be projection because you were exactly what I needed when you were in prison, because you were the rock, you were the stability that I didn't have. You were clear about so many things that seemed, ephemeral and confusing and complex out here. And she said, I wanted that certainty and I wanted somebody to bounce things off of who could be calm and could be still. And so I thought about it. I think that was true. And it's not that I liked being in prison. It's not that I liked prison at all. Prison was incredibly uncomfortable. It was inhumane. There were so many limitations. I was so aware of the things that I couldn't have or didn't have. But because it was so bad, that meant I worked that much harder to make it as meaningful and as full as I possibly could. So I meditated, I exercised, I wrote, I mentored, I tutored. I did these things that I realized kind of gave me happiness or gave me meaning. I filled my life as full as I could. And what I think happened is that I got out of prison and all of a sudden I had all these things in front of me, all these good things, these good experiences, these good opportunities. And I forgot to work quite so hard to make myself happier, make my life meaningful. And so when I look at that, it's not that prison was good. It's that prison was this kind of like empty vessel, this like very hard concrete vessel in which I could grow into who I wanted to be. Then I got here in the world and there's so many soft things, or there's so many nice things, there's so many distracting things that I kind of lost the dedication. I lost the routine. I lost the structure that I had that allowed me to get to where I was. And so when I thought about that, it seemed really clear. Like, yeah, no wonder I wasn't happy. Like, no wonder I've been like struggling with what I want to do or where I want to be. I'm not doing the things in my daily life now that are going to make me happy. They came the other day because I was talking to somebody who is like fabulously wealthy and came by it very quickly. Basically, like went from being like okay to fabulously wealthy in a short period of time. And I was talking about scarcity and how I just needed to make sure that I had enough and like one day I'd be able to relax. And they said, Jesse, like you don't ever relax. It doesn't matter how much money you have. That anxiety doesn't go away until you heal the stuff on the inside. Because I thought about it, I was like, if I did have all the money in the world, what would I do? And I don't know. I don't have an answer. It's not like, oh, I want to, be able to prevent polio in parts of the world that it still exists, or I want to sit on a beach all day and drink Mai Tais. Like, I don't have a clear idea of what I even want. So the money is not the problem. The like wealth is not the problem. It's figuring out what I want and then doing those things. And so I have to go back to what works. So this morning I got up and, still have this partially paralyzed arm. So I can't work out in a traditional sense, but I hooked the E-stim up to it, the machine that runs electrical current through it. And the idea is that sometimes that can actually stimulate the muscle firing because there's some branches of the nerve that are still like lightly connected. Imagine like a wire that's stripped but not completely disconnected. There are other parts that are completely disconnected. And the idea is that for the areas that are slightly connected, it'll increase flow and allow the muscle to work or do something. And for the areas that are totally disconnected, it's kind of like a homing beacon so that nerve can then grow and reconnect. I'm meeting with a surgeon next week to find out if surgery is an option. I kind of hope it is, just because I don't want to be let's wait and see and hope everything's okay. Because maybe the nerve will grow back and maybe it won't. But if surgery has a 90% success rate, I would feel better about that than just like hoping my arm starts working again one day. I decided to work out. So I got up, I hooked the E-stim up, did all my exercises. I actually used this right here. This was my bar because I can use my right arm. So I just take my left and I use this to, connect my left arm. And that way I'm kind of doing my exercise where I use it to do all the little internal rotations. And these are not fun weightlifting exercises like I used to do. These are just like PT exercises. I did that. And then I knew I needed to do something. I've been trying to get an exercise bike. I keep meaning to join a gym. So I went outside and there's stairs in the condo. So I just ran the stairs for about half an hour. Ran up, ran down, ran up, ran down. And I had to hold my arm the whole time that I was doing it. It wasn't the most comfortable. But I remember that was one of the things that gave me peace in prison. When I was struggling, when I didn't know what else to do, I would sit down and do a set of push-ups, or I would do step-ups in the chair, or I would do something physical. And it wasn't that I was trying to avoid things, it was that would help give me kind of the energy or the clarity or kind of like deal with that anxiety I was feeling. Then, as soon as I get done here, I'm gonna go sit down and meditate. Because I used to meditate 2 to 3 times a day, every single day. I did that from 2010 until I got out. And I meditate kind of periodically now, but it's no longer a core tenet of my life. It's no longer kind of the thing that my life is built on because I felt like, oh, I have this mindfulness now. I'm aware. And I am aware. I'm much more aware than I was before, but I'm not in that same grounded state. And that was Courtney, the person who told me I was happier in prison. She said, that's what I remember. I had never met anybody who was as grounded as you were, who was just as clear and calm and able to do things. But also it wasn't like I was robotic. I mean, we used to laugh. We used to have belly laughs on the phone. And that was the thing, is because I felt like I was free to then feel and do and experience. And I got out here to the world and there's so many things to experience. There's so many kind of trinkets to chase or shiny things or fun experiences or going out with people that I forgot to really take care of myself. And I noticed that because here lately, or before the accident, I should say, I was going out all the time. I was on the road, I was traveling, I was staying different places, I was seeing different people, and I was always kind of in the mix of it. And I was never really being still. And since the accident, I've had a lot of times, like I don't think I've gone out in weeks. I've stayed here in the condo and I've just sat by myself, because the thing is, how do I deal with that? How do I face that? How do I feel all these feelings? And it's to deal with it myself, to be with myself, to not distract myself with trinkets or fun people or whatever's going on. So as I look at that, I'm going to go sit and meditate. And then I have a coffee thing later. I actually forgot yesterday, which made me feel terrible. So I have a coffee thing later, and then I'm going down to Richmond. I've got a speaking engagement tomorrow, basically a talk for a bunch of student activists tomorrow. Then I'm going up to DC. So like my life is still really busy. The thing that I want to have is the kind of grounded base while I'm in that busy life. Because I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do with the nonprofit. I'm still trying to figure out if I want to take a different job. I'm still trying to figure out if whatever, but I get clarity because I think about what really matters to me. And where I hear that voice the most is when I'm quiet and still, when I'm meditating. And sometimes I hear it when I'm done exercising or even when I am exercising. I've got friends who go on these long runs. I got a friend who's an ultra marathoner who says their greatest clarity comes on that long run when things just kind of come together. In trying to prioritize taking care of myself, or not trying, in prioritizing taking care of myself and getting back to the things that made my life meaningful when I was in prison, with all the added benefits of actually being in the world and being able to access people and resources and opportunities, I'm working to get myself back to a place where I feel grounded, where I feel content, where I feel like my life is meaningful and full of meaning. Because again, it's really easy to get caught in the distractions, and that just doesn't satisfy. I actually wrote, there's a line in my book where I said that, those things are kind of like fireworks. They're great, they make you go ooh and ah, but they don't do anything to keep you warm at night. They don't do anything to guide your way home. They're just a distraction. And distractions are great. I'm all for it. I'm all for fireworks. I'm all for, fun dinners or time with friends. At the same time, if that's all life is about, I think for me, life would feel meaningless. So I'm going back to the place of feeling grounded, having my life have meaning, and being connected to that. And it's frustrating because, when I started the nonprofit, I was so excited to be able to do this thing that I was passionate about, to help people getting out of jail and prison. The problem was, I like working with people one-on-one. I like talking to them. I like answering questions. I like interacting. I don't so much like the kind of like dealing with IT problems or dealing with staffing stuff or going through paperwork, or those are not the things that I really enjoy. And so what I recognize is the role that I feel like I'm best suited for, that I would have the greatest satisfaction, is not doing what I'm doing. So it doesn't mean I don't want to do a nonprofit. It doesn't mean I don't want to continue to do work. It means that I want to do work that is more in alignment with who I want to be and what I want to do. And I'm still figuring out what that could be or what that looks like in the big scheme. But I'm excited because I feel like I've kind of cracked a nut of what's going on, because I've been in this existential, just funk ever since the accident, or maybe a little after the accident. And, it's not just the disability. It's not just not being able to move my arm. It's all these other things, these much bigger questions, these bigger things. So I'm trying to answer them. And my hope is that I'm getting some clarity, and that I'm going to know where I want to be and what I want to do to a better sense by being still and listening. But for now, it's time to go meditate, and I got to finish my coffee, and then I got to head out into the world. But I just really wanted to reflect on the fact that sometimes we learn kind of superpowers or skills when we're put to the test. When we're in a really difficult situation, that's where we learn to be at our best or be the strongest. If you think about the beginning of what is the movie with Schwarzenegger? Conan the Barbarian. In the beginning of Conan the Barbarian, there are all these kids pushing this wheel, and Conan is the only one who survives, and he's huge and he's strong because he's pushed this wheel all day, every day for however many years. And that's the thing, we learn those strengths. We gain those abilities in those difficult times or in trauma, and we can then take those out into the world or into a better life or into a less traumatic life, but it's easy to get distracted and fall into, what's comfortable. It makes me think of the obsession with Stoicism and all these people who say, life is about being austere, and I don't entirely believe that's true, but I do believe that life is simple. And we come out into the world and we make it much more complex, and we fill it with all these things and all these distractions. It's the same way as when I first got out, I was overwhelmed going to Costco because I was like, how do you buy all these things and then have to replace them and have to take care of them and have to lock them in a place so you keep them safe? And I liked a simple life, and I think I still do. And I've allowed my life to get much more complicated and much busier and much crazier. And what I want to get back to is, whether I'm traveling or speaking or doing whatever, a life that is simple. And it's one of the reasons I like being in a hotel room, because it's like, hey, everything's there. There's nothing else to worry about. Like, this is it. This is all I am responsible for. And so I could see myself, whether it's here or somewhere else, living a really simple life, even if a really full, simple life. And the key to that is being grounded, meditating, exercising, making sure that I'm taking care of myself and checking in on myself. And actually, I had a really good talk with my therapist this week. And that's one of the things. People always ask me, what kind of tip do you have for somebody getting out of jail and prison? And my answer is therapy. but really getting oneself ready to go to therapy. Because a lot of people will go and they don't get anything out of it because they're not actually being open or vulnerable. For me, it's going and saying, hey, my life is on fire and I need help. How can you help me help myself? And I have an amazing therapist. I'm incredibly grateful for her. It just reminds me that the answers are not big and they're not out there. They're not in my head. They're right here. They're simple. The answers are doing the things that make us feel full, that make our life feel meaningful, that make us feel connected. And that's what I'm going to go do. So have a wonderful day.